All right, so we are here with another episode of Social Out with the Fifth, and I couldn't be more excited. We have an incredible guest in Jazmine Chase. Jazmine is the Senior Multicultural Influencer Marketing Manager at Amazon Studios and responsible for a lot of the dope things that happen over there. So we're going to have an incredible conversation, but before we do that, Jazz would love to have you tell the audience really quickly what you do over there at Amazon, how long you've been there, and then we can jump into the combo.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Jazmine Chase. I've been at Amazon for about 3.5 years. My day-to-day is more so trying to figure out influencer strategy to help support the launch of our TV series and our films launching on Prime Video.
I guess jumping into some questions I have for you, because a lot of respect. You've been in the influencer marketing game for a very long time. Some would say you're an OG in the game. So as an OG in the space, you've seen a lot of waves, right? Waves come, waves go. Could you give the audience a quick rundown on the time you spent in the space and some of the more fundamental shifts you've seen since the beginning of your time in the influencer marketing space?
Yeah, for sure. So I started off in the space back in 2015. I was working at Evite, which is like an online invitation company. Yeah. And at that time, influencer was starting to pop and bubble up. I think people were still trying to figure out what that looked like. And so that's kind of what I was tasked with at Evite, was like, we kind of are dabbing into this, but we really don't know what's happening or what's going on. Like, we need someone to go and be a dedicated person to figure this out. And so at that time, there wasn't a lot of resources. A lot of people were trying to do it, but people weren't really like, I guess, throwing things at the wall, see what sticks, going to conferences. That's how I got started. I went to a lot of like blogger conferences just to kind of get FaceTime with different influencers at the time to see what was working, what wasn't working, how they like to work with brands, what they didn't like working with brands. And so from there, I started to build that program out. In the world of launching new shows, films, IP, what have you found in the ecosystem you currently exist in to be the core role of an influencer in your day-to-day and, frankly, the studio's day-to-day in terms of promoting all that they do over there? If you think about influencer marketing, it really is just word-of-mouth marketing amplified, right? It's similar to like Suits, right? Suits was something that was out years ago, and now it blew up on TikTok, and now it's back popular, right? So I think for us, influencers played a role of just being like that word of mouth piece, right? The piece to kind of tell their friends, I just seen an amazing show or I seen an amazing film and I got to tell you about it. Like if you think about Swarm, right? Swarm was a crazy show and it went viral because people started talking about it on Black Twitter. So I think that influencers just play the role of just helping us spread the word, get people excited about what's coming out on the platform.
Let's key in really quickly on that multicultural part of your title. As a marketing leader in that space, what do you think the significance of these roles for leading brands, including yours, are, and how much should brands be preparing for actioning strategies that they leverage in their multicultural roles or audiences that they're targeting to general audience, general marketing strategies?
Well, to be honest, I think people were doing the work prior to, but I think what really brought it to the forefront was what all went down in 2020 and how this momentum of like brands really supporting, diverse audiences, specifically Black audiences, and wanting to bring people in to really who could speak to that audience and understand the different nuances. And so I think, unfortunately, as we all have been seeing, like we've kind of are moving away from that, where like at one point it was such a priority for these brands, and slowly but surely doesn't really seem like it's that much of a priority, right?
We've noticed.
I think everyone has. But fortunately for me, I think that's what how my role was carved out, because I actually was brought on to be the Black lead and to support Black titles. And over time, just because I work on so many different type of projects, that role has evolved into multicultural, right? Because I touch, LGBTQ+, I touch Latino, So I think for me, to answer your question, I think it's so important because if you don't have people like me in the room, there's no one to actually speak to or be a representative of that audience. You need representation. Representation goes a long way, and not just at these tables, but also, on screen. People need to see themselves so they can relate, so they can actually know what they can achieve too, right? So I think for me, I love being on this side of the table because I love to be able to provide opportunity to us.
What are some of the things you look for and you prioritize or would push your partners, external partners, to prioritize to make sure that they can work with a Jazmine Chase or somebody whose core role is making sure that there is representation and the proper type of conversations happening?
So for me, having that previous experience, I kind of know what to look for, right? Because I know when I was in those war rooms on the agency side, how we would be so thoughtful in the story that we were trying to tell for the different brands, especially the ones who wanted to touch those unique and special audiences. So I think for me, I'm looking for someone that can speak the language, because I understand culture. I like to. You got it, Chad. You got it. I like to find partners who also can speak that same language, even if, let's just say, they might not be multicultural, but they're still being thoughtful. They're still thinking about being authentic. If they know that they don't have the right people in the room, they're bringing those people in the room to have an expert to speak to things that they might not be comfortable or maybe not be as knowledgeable. So for me, I think I just look for big ideas because I'm a blue sky person first. And secondarily, I want to see how they intertwine culture into that thinking.
Sure. I'd love to pick your brain really quickly on what excites you about the future of this that we're calling the creator economy. What do you think brands should tap into around this particular thing that excites you about the future of the creator economy?
Yeah, I think for me, the future of the economy is really so endless because if people really think about the influencer space, it's still in its infancy. It's not that old, right? So I'm excited about it continuing to evolve into whatever maturity might look like for the space. But I also feel that influencer is in this weird spot where, people are like, it's oversaturated, or, you think you did a cool campaign and all the comments are like, oh, get the check, bro. And you're like, no, I want you to think about the content. And so now people are understanding a little bit more because it's becoming more a part of pop culture where people, like, even on screen, you see influencers being represented in certain ways. And so for me, I'm excited to see how, like, AI and even some of these new age technology breakthroughs that's happening, how they kind of mesh together with the influencer space. So they kind of give you an example. Like, I always think about VR, when VR is a little bit more accessible, and how, like, what's the role that VR will play, right? Because I'm thinking in the future, if I pay, I don't know, let's just say $10, maybe less, I can have a coffee date with Kim Kardashian, like, through VR. And then she can kind of tell me, like, whatever I want to ask. Like, people always ask on Instagram, like, if you had $50,000 or 10 minutes with Jay-Z, which one would you take? And you'll be like,
you gotta take that Jay-Z.
You take the Jay-Z. But I'm like, but if I can get a Jay-Z one-on-one in VR for, that's interesting, right? When it becomes more of an accessible technology. So, and as far as wisdom, I just really want brands to embrace the creator economy. You have a lot of brands that's still pretty green. Like, they truly don't understand how to truly work with influencers because they're looking at, ROI, and they're looking at the numbers, and I totally get it because I look at it too. I also want brands to become a little bit more collaborative with creators. Like, they know what they know. So I think it's about making the experience more collaborative for both parties. Instead of just having the brief and making them live by the brief. I think the brief should be there as a guide, but it should be open to let them explore their creativity, what their niche is, what their expertise is.
Especially when you're trying to talk to younger audiences, they sniff out a brand partnership that's not really about that life more and more quickly each and every day. So making sure that you're approaching creators with the understanding that they too are creatives and creative directors and marketers, right? Know how to speak to an audience and making sure that you can meet them where they are while making sure that your brand objectives are met as well. So that collaboration always needs to exist. Last question before I get you out of here, Jazz, and do appreciate the time.
No problem.
What are some of the new ways, creatively or otherwise, that you see brands in the not so distant future working with creators to really expand the footprint and the impact of collaborations with creators?
I think a big piece too is, like, like I call it co-creation. And so like really partnering with creators to create something. So even if you're a brand, like what is a unique product? I mean, we see it now with like the Hailey Bieber smoothie at Erewhon, right? Where they came together and they created something that was authentic to her, right? So I think that whole like shopping experience, especially when content becomes more shoppable, like when you can actually shop, like right now you can do it basically, but when you can actually watch something and you can like just click and buy it, I think that kind of is the future of like what does shoppable content look like.
Sure.
So I think we are doing like baby steps of it now, but eventually as technology advances, I do think that there's great opportunity there for creators. I know for me personally, I just love to do innovative, first to market, creative influencer ideas and strategy and concepts. So a lot of things that we do on my side is like even seeding kits. Like I want to work with the influencer to figure out like how to make a kit that speaks to them but also speaks to us. That's not just a bunch of junk. No one needs more stuff, right? So keeping that top of mind. I believe experiences, right? Like really getting immersive, whether you're us where we can bring our titles to life through experiences, or you're another fashion brand that can actually, I think Rihanna does a great job of her experiences, right? Where she brings people into the world of Fenty. And so I think that can only grow and be better. And I think it's a really great tactic because organically you can get people loving and talking about the brand just because the experience is so dope. Yeah. So I think those are mine.
Yeah, and I love where you started with that, with the power of Amazon or just, brand. You can bring a creator into other things you're doing, have them be like truly an ambassador for your brand or your label. And there's a reason for that, right? Because there's a lot of power in that audience that they've built, and being able to carry that forward through multiple touch points is really important. Because you made the comment about the billboard and like, is a billboard driving action? One thing we know, because we've been able to map a lot of sizable creators through multiple touch points across brand activation or whatever it might be, is that they absolutely command at minimum attention, which then can be leveraged to drive impact and action. So that's the thing that somebody like me, who's always looking at the measurement of it all, is really excited about. And as things become more and more measurable, I think you'll see brands continue to lean into and leverage the power of the creator, and that's really exciting for everybody.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I mean, we think about performance marketing, right? Where I think for a long time, historically, influencer has been top of the funnel brand awareness. But I think as, like you said, brands start to become more savvy and start really digging deep into the metrics of it all, I do think that you'll start to see lower funnel activities driving the needle with influencers. I know on the fashion side, they've been able to see a lot of great results, right? But when it comes to tech, applications and things like that, I think the learning there still has some time to grow. But I think for the most part, to your point, like, as we be able to manage it and really monitor what success looks like, I think more brands will continue to grow with it. I also think that, influencer it's just an interesting time, right? To be in something that's just so new and fresh and that keeps changing every day, right? But one thing I'm excited for is standardization. I can't wait to get a rate card or something that we can all, follow and agree to. Because I think, now and since the beginning, it's kind of been like, oh, this brand gave me $20,000, so it's $20,000, but not considering, metrics or performance or anything like that. So.
Yeah, it's a big lift, but we're getting there slowly but surely. But definitely a pleasure talking again to one of the OGs of the game, Jazmine Chase. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And that concludes another episode of Social Out with the Fifth. Thank you very much, guys.